and welcome to Dude, Where's My Ramp, the podcast all about disability and mental health. Access needs are important to us, so let's begin with some audio descriptions. Hi, I'm Chandy. I'm a white male. I've got short brown hair that's a little bit longer on top. I've got a ginger beard. I'm wearing a black top today. On the wall behind me are various images in large frames that you can see. And yeah, Emma?
Hi, I'm Emma, and I'm a white woman with long brown hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a green sweatshirt, and my background is blurred, so you can't really see anything.
Amazing. So description's done. Let's get into our ramp check. This is where we check in with each other or share news and updates before diving into the big stuff. No pressure, just a space to be messy, honest, or whatever we need. Emma, how's your week been?
Totally fine. No, it's like, okay, here's the thing. So in the immediate and near future, life's not fine. My mom is dying, my family is being abusive, and life is stressful because I live in New York. But I don't want to that's the truth. That's just how it's going to be. But, other than that, it's fine.
How have you looked? Because I know this has been an issue for a number of weeks, and I never really know what to say to show support as well. Because I'm like, it's not like I can give you a hug or anything because we're like on opposite sides of the planet. But how have you looked after yourself? What are you doing to take care of yourself and do the things that you enjoy?
Well, actually, so something I've been doing throughout sort of the past 9 months that my mom has been declining. So it's sort of anticipatory grief, there's a lot of grieving going on. And so I really leaned into my creativity. So one thing that I do which I think has been really helpful is I write little one-act plays. So my family's been, obviously my mom having a ALS has been very hard on itself, but my family has been really quite awful and dysfunctional, and I've been scapegoated and really treated horrifically. But so there's been a lot of family grief, and there's been a lot of things that I wanted to sort of wished gone differently. And I sort of reimagine certain interactions and stuff and I write them as a one act. So I think okay, if this would have gone in a way that would not have traumatized me or would have been comforting or supportive, what would be the setting? Where would I be? What would I be wearing? What time of day? What season? And what would that interact? What would my relative be saying to me? What would I say back? And what would that have meant? And how would that have impacted us moving forward? And I create a scene and I sort of reimagine it. I don't know. It's been really healing just to sort of create something else, even though I know it's not real and it didn't happen that way. I know that intellectually there's something in my body that just felt unburdened and sort of a weight lifted off, sort of. I don't know. It's sort of like I gave myself what I couldn't. I gave my emotionally, I gave myself what I couldn't get in real life. I don't know. I don't know why it worked, but it really works. And so I do that a lot, just sort of doing little plays, and they're not good. You're not going to see them on Broadway. So bad. They're so bad, but they're going to stay in a Google Drive folder on my computer, but they were really, I think that's a really, my advice would be, if you're going through something, lean into your creative side. You know, it's actually, I think, just as therapeutic as any session with a therapist.
I definitely think it is helpful. Like my therapist at the start of our, I want a break with my therapist, not like a Ross and Rachel break, like a proper little break. Like started taking a few months out, just well not a month and a bit, just to kind of save a bit of money, but also just try and do the things that we've been talking about. Because she kept telling me, get a journal, get a journal, get a journal, and I was just like, no, I don't find that helpful. I used to, but then I just lost like interest, and like I'd do it for a couple of days and then forget about it. And I started doing it again recently, and every now and then, like I did it and then I missed a week, and I did it the other day, and I did it last night and the night before.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful I'm going to do it tonight if I remember.
Well,
But
I think too, sometimes, because we both have ADHD. I think you say it like that, right? ADHD. Yeah. So I think also it's hard for people like you and I to be consistent with one sort of way of processing. So I like, and what I've been doing is having a variety of things I do. So I talked about one of them, but I also like, what else do I do? I write poems. I take pictures, like go out and do like little photography projects. I make collages, make jewelry. I go on ChatGPT and like just process it out. You know, I make spreadsheets. And I think having a variety was really helpful. So I would suggest that. So maybe if you're having, and I think the pressure of it, I don't know. I just feel like it's like there's a pressure to do one thing for your mental health, like journaling or like whatever, like exercising or like yoga. Like I feel like for certain people, especially neurodivergent people, like we need to do 5 things, 5 different things.
I think it is important, and I try and do so. Like I've been like some days I write like 3 things that are good that happened. Other days I'll just write one thought, and just allow myself to be messy and stuff. But also I found recently, like when I'm getting anxious and stuff, like sometimes I find that being distracted by the things really helps. And this has always been a theme. So like the other day I was like getting anxious, and I was like thinking, when was the last time that someone bought me flowers? And then like I think about like men's mental health and how often like buying your mate flowers is quite odd. Like if you think about it, like guys buying other guys flowers, it's not the norm. It's like, oh, then I came up with like a whole little business plan in my head. Like, what about like a campaign to where like you buy your mate flowers and then they're hand delivered, like, and then that person gets given a card and they have to then deliver flowers to their mate, and it's called Bros in Bloom. So I'm like, I've done all this, like, all the artwork and everything, and all of this is from like just one anxiety thought. So like, I mean, I'm good for like pitching, and like if people want business ideas, I should start charging.
You should.
Because I come up with so many like business ideas in my head, and I'm like, oh, could do this, and I've got a little logo and stuff and everything.
But I think that's good. But I think like I've really leaned into my neurodivergent brain throughout the past 9 months, and I think it's really like been such a benefit. And I don't know, as much as like, and I've also discovered like I'm really like pattern recognition. I'm like, ugh, like I'm so good at it. And if I felt like I wanted to deal with taking like the bar exam or going to the LSATs or going to law school, I'd be a good lawyer. I just don't want to fucking, I know people have gone through law school. It sounds like a nightmare. No, thank you. I don't care. I just won't. I don't, no. And in the United States, we don't have, there's no justice in our, like we have a legal system. We don't have a justice system. So I feel like it would be not, I feel like I'd mostly just be really angry all the time if I became a lawyer. I'd feel really, yeah.
I really
No.
want to go into law, but I think as well, like, I just get so like, I think it's that neurodivergent thing of having a strong sense of injustice, of like knowing what's right and what's wrong, and like always wanting to do the right thing because you're worried about the impact that it has if you don't. Well, that's my experience.
Oh no, I'm like right there. Yeah. Um, the texts I've been sending to my family members, it's like, oh my god. I don't know why, but I don't know if you've ever seen the Tom Cruise movie where he's like, I want the truth, and then Jack Nicholson's like, you can't handle the truth. Like, I feel like that's how I feel. But like Tom Cruise. Yeah.
I think it's hard sometimes, and I think life is pretty rough for everyone right now. But I think the way that it's being, like, I don't like to like like the right and left, like we're all struggling, but like yesterday, the opposition leader to the Labour Party here, so the Conservative leader, she was like, I don't believe that 1 in 4 of us are disabled. And I challenged it and said on Twitter, and I said, wait, Twitter? No, X. And I said to someone, no, that's her being ableist. And their response was, okay, chav. And I was just like, where's the compassion? But this person said it looked like they were like a big supporter of the royal family and stuff. And I'm like, the royal family have always been somewhat empathetic, and they've shown empathy. And I think the fact that that person was trying to show that they're a fan of the royal family and the way they behave, but then is acting like a child and using discriminatory language. And like, I know the life is tough for a lot of us right now, but you can be empathetic and you can understand someone. And if you don't, you can say, I don't understand your point of view, and it's okay to disagree. But it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's because and the internet has really just allowed people to behave like Neanderthals. They're like, well, I'm behind a screen, so nobody will know. Okay. Like, it's just people's behavior goes off the rails because people feel safe acting like complete, just because they're not having to face something, like they're not face to face with somebody. So that's one thing I don't like. I mean, well, what makes you awesome makes you suck. So it's kind of like the internet. It's like, it's awesome, but it also really sucks for that reason.
I think as well, people just like to pick fault on everything and like saying things are too woke and stuff. No, things have always been woke, and it's good to be woke because it shows empathy and understanding. And some people saying that Superman's now too woke, and I'm like, it's about a fictional person from another planet with superhuman powers. I think as well, like, it's just people speaking before they think, and I can do that sometimes as well. But at the same time, I think it's just it's important to have that other point of view and think about it and just process that as well.
Just don't be a dick. That's it. Don't be a and it's kind of like, it's not even, and at this point, it's not about having another view. It's not the way it used to be where it's like, I believe in, like, well, it's gone to a point where it's like the politics are either like humane or inhumane. I mean, it's really gotten that extreme. And it comes down to people who are like, oh, it's too woke. They really just want it's because they're losing the ability to do something they know is wrong for it to be socially acceptable to do something that is offensive. They don't want to change their behavior. Mm-hmm. It used to be, when my parents were in high school, it used to be okay it was never okay, but the F word, that's discriminatory, that's a derogatory term for gay individuals. But when my parents were in high school, you weren't going to get yelled for saying that word. acceptable enough for some like teachers to approve that to be put in the yearbook, you know. So people now, when they're resistant to that, to change, it's because you know it's hurtful and it's no longer socially acceptable, and you just don't want to have to like be called out. That's it. But you know it's wrong. It hurts people. You know, I used to, in middle school, the R word was really big where I was, and I will admit I said it a lot, and I didn't say it. I didn't call people that, but I would say it doesn't make, that's not better. But I shouldn't have even tried to excuse myself there. Like, it's all bad. It's not bad no matter what. But you know, I remember when the first couple times somebody was like, "Don't you ever say that? That is like wrong towards disabled people." Which, as a disabled, I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm like not that way." But I was being, and any resistance was because I was uncomfortable. I was being shown a mirror to like how I was actually acting, which is not aligned with the person I want to be, and that was embarrassing. And that's what it was all about.
And it's about showing that you're willing to learn and adapt and grow as a person. But I like what you said about don't be. I think that encompasses it all.
Just don't be. If somebody says like, you know, it's like, it's okay to make mistakes, but if you step on somebody's toe, what's the first? Your reaction is not to go, "I didn't mean to," or "Why are you crying?" It's, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you." And then you try not to step on their foot again.
Should we get into our big topic?
Yeah.
I mean, in the last 20 minutes we talked about death, about discrimination. It was quite a heavy start to the episode.
Welcome to Neurodivergent Banter. Before we get into it, we'll just say I love that about being neurodivergent. I love it so much. We can go from like, and it's like neurotypical is like, fucking keep up. Let's go. We were talking about death. Now we're talking about movies. What do you want?
Right. So our big topic this week is around disability and dating. And I'm going to kick this off and say that in the last week, I've applied to a dating show because I'm fed up of being single, and dating apps, disabled, do not work. I'm just going to put that out there.
They seriously don't.
I've been ghosted. Well, like the second I've mentioned to someone that I'm neurodivergent or I've got undiagnosed ADHD or whatever, they just don't respond. And I know that it's a bit of a issue, like to know what to say to someone, but sometimes you don't have to say something. You just carry on the conversation from other things that you've been talking about. Like, don't get me wrong. I've been on dates where I've done everything to try and make myself look cool. I've made an impression or tried to. I've bought the girl flowers, and then I've walked her home. I've shook her hand, and then I've walked away like it was a business deal. I can't listen to some bands because I made a mixtape for a girl, and now every time I hear those bands, I'm reminded of the time I made a girl a mixtape and she didn't know what to do with it.
What? That's cool. That's like not, guys don't do that anymore. I would love a mixtape.
Well,
it reminds me of like fucking, that's like a very like, that's a lost art. I love the mixtape.
Well, clearly it didn't work for me on this occasion, so
She didn't deserve the mixtape. That's the only thing. It's like, it's not because it wasn't cool. It's because she didn't feel like an appreciated. She's a loser. Who doesn't like a mixtape? What a weirdo. Like what? What music? Was it bad music? That's the only thing I can think of.
I can't even remember. I know one of them was a cheesy pop band.
What band?
I can't remember. I'm 30 years old. This was when I was like 16. But yeah, I've applied to a dating show in the UK. It's called First Dates. So we'll see if I get accepted.
That's I've seen that show. That's yeah, they just go to like dinner and
yeah. Because my friends put me forward for it while I was at university, and then I had a lengthy phone call with a casting agent, And they were like, can you come to a meeting on the weekend? And I was like, I'm actually busy. And then they never got back to me. So, and that was like 10 years ago now.
Okay.
So,
Well, so the dating show. So, what made you, what do you think, what made you motivated to go to do, instead of, we know why apps are bad, but like, what appealed to you about a dating show? Why do you think that might be a good option?
because I can't, like, I don't have the confidence to go and speak to someone in person. And so, in like a structured environment where I know what's going to happen and I'm going to meet someone, I feel like you can script a little bit for that. So, like, I know what to say if I'm asked certain questions and stuff. Whereas
Yeah.
going up to someone in person that you've never met before or that you think is attractive and being
Yeah.
like, hey, can I get your number or whatever? Like, that to me just feels very odd. And also, I'm just not, like, I'm confident, but I'm not confident in that respect. Because it's like, what's the worst? People are like, what's the worst that could happen? And I can literally list about 50 things that could go wrong. And they're like, no, the worst thing that could happen is that she could say no.
Be really cruel. We're not even nice to each other. So no, it can be pretty bad. Girls can really tear you down if they want to. We're scary.
And I think
I
as
get,
well, like, I don't know how you feel, but like dating, like, because everything is so instant and like you see someone on Tinder or whatever and you swipe right or left, it's not even like you're getting to know that person before you make a decision. It's just like, no, 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 yes, maybe, no, no, no. And it just is.
I just don't like what that, because you do start to just like, it's like you mindless, and I don't ever want to, I don't really agree with treating people that way. I don't want to like just swipe right or left on
Mm,
somebody when I don't know them. And um I don't know. I just think like, how would I feel if a guy like just was and just didn't, barely looked at my profile and just swiped um at me? Like that doesn't make me feel good. I mean, like I'm sure it's happened when I was on the dating apps, like many times, but like that kind of grosses me out, and I just don't want to be that kind of person. I just feel like I don't, it's okay not to be attracted to somebody, but I don't ever want to like, every time we, like, if you're in a room full of people that are like around the age group of who you want to date and stuff,
mm.
like, of course you're gonna know like pretty much right away, am I attracted or not? But like that's a natural sort of process. But Tinder is like intentionally like kind of training your, I don't know, and I don't want to train my brain to sort of treat people like that. And I also really have been hurt by, as a wheelchair user, I, something that really was traumatic for me. I knew in high school, like, not my time to date. I just knew the guys were immature. They weren't like, cool, have your like, first little girlfriend experience, whatever. I accepted that before, it, like, before I even entered high school. So cool. But I expected that, when I got to college and adulthood, that people would mature, and I found that no, I wasn't really, it was so hurtful to like go into a party or a bar and just, it's just like, I knew that like I could be, and a lot of times I was like the most attractive one in the room. That sounds really, really egotistical, but whatever, I'm good looking. So I have been the prettiest woman in the room. I have been the funniest, most interesting, most intelligent, but like a guy will still look at me, see that I'm a chair, and like immediate no. And I know, because I know that look. I know. It's like they think they're being subtle, and you just see kind of their immediate, and it's really, really hurtful. And that's kind of what Tinder reminded me of. Is I was like, well, that's essentially, I'm doing the same thing to somebody else. And I just don't want to be that kind of person. I thought that was mean. And I also thought it was boring. It's not, I'm like, some guy would like message me if we imagine they'd be like, hey, and I'd be like, all right, I'm out of here. This is boring. I just get bored. And then I also, if they were like, let's meet up, I'd get scared because I wouldn't feel safe. I would like stand them up, which is, I did that like a couple, like I did that. It just was not a good thing for me. So
Even if it's like a Tinder like conversation, I'm automatically worrying that like if anything went further than like a date or a second date or whatever, those people are going to be worried about going out in public with me because they'll get because I get stared at when I walk down the road. If I've got my walking stick, people are staring at the fact that I'm like a 30-year-old with a walking stick. If I'm walking with a limp because I don't have my walking stick, then they're judging me based on my walk and stuff. And so I'm just very mindful of all of that all the time.
mm-hmm.
And then I'm panicking like, are they going to be okay with being stared at in public, and how they're going to feel if we did start dating properly? Would they then feel like a carer for me, or like those sort of things that shouldn't matter if you're in a relationship with someone you care about? But the second that you allow yourself to start thinking about those things, they become like the overarching theme.
Yeah. I mean, I think from the woman's perspective, honestly, like women, I find like, I think we have more emotional, like I find, and this is just for me, but also I find with other women, is that like, I think there's more of an openness to date a disabled man. I feel like the things that women typically seek out in a relationship are more emotional support and uh, um, like connection and getting along, making each other laugh, feeling safe. I, I mean, I've seen, that's what I've seen. Like, I don't know, just think of like different couples where like, you're kind of like, wait, what's going on there? And like that woman is like way out of his league. And it's like, no, it's like, it's because women are more flexible, I think, than men are. Because I feel like maybe as a woman, I felt like, I don't know. And with gender roles too, like I think women are oftentimes naturally carers, natural maternal. And so I don't think we think about it. I don't know. I've never dated a disabled man, but like I would not care. Like honestly, I think I will probably end up, whoever I end up with, if I'm lucky to find somebody, it'll probably be somebody disabled. And I would not give it, because I feel like that's what you do when you love somebody. You care for them. I mean, I don't know. Like I care about being with somebody that feels like a partner. If they need help putting on their shoes, or if they need help, maybe there's somebody that gets a lot of panic attacks, or maybe there's somebody that needs is deaf and only communicates in sign language. I feel like, I don't know. I don't think it would matter to me at all. I think I would just do it.
And I think as well, like disability in dating, there is a lot of stigma. And especially when you think about things like Love Island, where it's always people that they look a certain type of person, and even when they have like a disabled person on the show, they pick the one that fits with their idea of what a normal human being looks like, and how we should envisage ourselves as human beings to be slim, petite, or very muscular if you're a man, and things. And like I found a picture the other day of me where I'm from a few years ago, and I was really skinny. I've put on a bit of weight since then, not like huge amount, but I'm a comfortable weight. I still want to lose a bit, and like because also it's making me feel a bit unfit when I go for a walk and stuff. But that's for health reasons. That's not to say that I need a six pack to have a girlfriend, because I've had that mindset before, and I've lost loads of weight and been really unhealthy because I've wanted to look like my friends to be like, because at school I was never in a relationship. I had a few dates in high school and stuff, and in university, but I've never had like a proper relationship as such. So like, I guess there's always these ideas being fed to us around perfection and the fact that if you're disabled, you're a burden or you look weird, and so you shouldn't be allowed to date.
And I think, yeah, and it's, I mean, I think it has to do with our society's sort of expectations for what people are supposed to do in life. Like, I think dating is very heavily influenced by capitalism. It's very influenced by gender roles and misogyny and the patriarchy. I think it's heavily influenced by also the dominant, at least in the United States, there's a dominant Christian influence, which I think is with dating can be largely problematic. And I don't know. I think that, and also the porn industry has not helped. Not helped. I know. People are like, oh, I love porn. Good. Fine, whatever. I'm just saying it hasn't helped. It has not. It has made expectations very unreasonable. Have all your fun you want, but like that's not how it is in real life.
And I think as well, just on that topic around like relationship, sex and stuff like that, I think there's often a misconception around disabled people being without those kind of desires to have a relationship that is sexual and things like that, because they think that because we're disabled, then we just don't have that desire.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, it's sort of well, the ultimately that taboo around sex and disability, I think, has to do with the infantilization, but also the belief that we're not supposed to reproduce. And I think also what we're taught about sex is very, it's not very, it's like, I'm just trying to think back to like what I was taught about sex. And yeah, from TV, but also in school. And it doesn't give much flexibility for if it looks like, it feels like we're taught that sex is supposed to happen a certain way. And if you can't do it that way, it's not good sex. And the truth is you pretty much just about anything. It's like, I don't know, like it's, and but people feel very intimidated when they can't do that a very specific way, or if it looks, if it deviates from that at all, then it must be less than, and it's not true. And sex is more than just, I mean, it's, and there's a real problem with how we think about sex, how we talk about it, and also just this stigma of discussing it openly also doesn't help. There's because everybody's curious. I mean, goddamn, like, and especially when you're a young person and, the hormones start to go all over the place when you're a teenager, and, and then what we are taught makes it scary or makes it intimidating or makes it feel like, oh, maybe I can't do it.
And I think as well, like, just in terms of dating and becoming like intimate, not even on a like how we just talked about, but in terms of just having those conversations with someone and getting to know them on a deeper level, like that intimacy and that connection with another person, it takes a lot sometimes, and especially when you're dealing with disability and you're neurodivergent, talking about your divergence or trying to explain how you feel is hard. And so if you don't understand it, how are you going to try and explain it to someone else, and how are they going to feel when you are not able to express that? Are they going to feel like you're hiding stuff from them, things like that?
Do you mean express it, like explain it, or?
Yeah, so like I know that it's hard for me sometimes to explain how my mental health is and stuff. I can feel it, I know what it means to me, but trying to then convey that to someone else. And so if I go quiet, it's because I don't know how to explain it. And
And
so
this really high. The stakes are high because if you don't explain it in the way that they understand, then you might get rejected, or or they might interpret it in a way that is negative. And so I've definitely, it's not just like that you can't find the words, it's also knowing that how important the right words are.
mm.
And that puts a lot of pressure.
And like I know that when I say to my family, like, I'm worried that if I do this bad thing will happen, they're not going to judge me. But someone who I may be 3-4 months into dating, if I say to them, I'm having a really anxious moment and I'm worried that this is going to happen, or this bad thing will happen if I don't do this a certain way, they're going to look at me and go, are you okay? Or that's my perceived idea of what they're going to say. They might not react that way. They might have more compassion and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
I
also
think,
me being ableist and me being kind of judgmental. But
but
that's
how is
my,
it ableist?
because like
What do
I'm
you
assuming that they're gonna just take a different mindset that's like, that's weird. I don't
mean?
know.
No, them being ableist. That's you having a trauma response. That's not you being ableist. That's you having a real concern because you know that people who are disabled are stigmatized, and that's a reality-based fear response. That's how I interpreted it. Not
Hmm.
you being ableist. I don't think that's ableist.
Okay. Well,
And give yourself
I
some.
think either way, I think I just panicked. Like that's
Yeah,
gonna be the default setting.
yeah, yeah. And ultimately, what it comes down to is it's really, um, the feedback we get from the world is that we're unworthy, and that we're, broken, inferior. All of this negative, these negative messages are constantly thrown our way, and so we're already having to sort of dodge that constantly. But romantic relationships is by itself very risky because you have to be very vulnerable. And so we've learned as disabled people, it's being vulnerable is that much scarier because the world has told us that, has given us a very clear message. And so it's hard to trust. I mean, even I think as a disabled woman, I was socialized to be suspicious of people when they were attracted to me. And like, why are you, what's going on here?
Mm.
Which is really harmful because it's not weird for somebody to be attracted to me. I'm attractive. I'm awesome. But I've been taught that there must be something there might be something wrong with them, or they might, and that's yeah, and that's impacted the way I move through the dating world. And yeah, I think already people non-disabled, or disabled or not, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, and in that way is really scary because it feels really, it just makes your heart sink when you get rejected in any way, because
Mm.
I mean, I don't need to over explain that. I think people know what I mean. And when you're disabled, because you already get that all the fucking time, like it's sort of like it's almost intolerable, like to go through that pain in that way, because there's no cushion. Like somebody who's non-disabled will get to turn around and be like, yeah, but I'm like fucking great. Like they might like get to, I mean, the world gives them a boost of, confidence. Where with us, it's not that way. People are like, yeah, well, yeah, I'm not surprised they like, I feel like I've been told sometimes in a indirect way when I've been rejected, I've like tell, and I could tell the reaction was like, yeah, they probably just didn't want to deal with that, as though they were justified, and it's hurtful. It's almost like this, oh, I'm not surprised. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, it's a lot, like kind of energy. And so it's like I get rejected and then I get rejected even more. It's horrible. So it makes dating really, I think, really scary.
And I think, like, when people say, like, there's plenty more fish in the sea and things like that, like, for me, that's great. But at the same time, like, there's so much that I find hard around dating, like knowing what to say, how to say it. I often turn to ChatGPT now to reword what I've written to make it sound more natural and stuff.
Well,
But
yeah,
before that, I would ask my friends for advice, but then that would be their advice for them in that situation.
Yeah.
That's not for a disabled person in that situation who's got my lived experience. And so that's what often set me up to fail, was like going off their advice and then doing that. When if I was just myself, it might have helped better. And I think when I do get rejected, it does hurt still, and it still makes me feel like I'm worthless at times.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have days when I feel like content in being single, because I can go and do stuff on my own. I can go for a bus ride to like the countryside on my own and just do stuff that I don't have to worry about. Does my partner want to do anything working around their schedule?
Yeah. Yeah. I really like being single. I mean, I would, ideally I would like to find somebody. But how I've been sort of, I think we're not guaranteed somebody. We're not. And I know it does feel like everybody has somebody and everybody's couple up. It's not true. But we're not guaranteed somebody. And, I think because I know that's not a guarantee, even though it's my hope, I want to make sure that if it's just not in the cards for me for whatever reason, I still want to be happy. And I don't want to revolve my life around, like, I don't want to set myself up for being like feeling like a failure or feeling like my life is less than because if I don't find somebody. And that's really important to me. So I focus, at least right now, is really protecting that. Because it doesn't mean it, but I do, yeah, that is my hope, I think. But I want to be happy either way. But I think, what was I saying? Well, I guess, so back to the dating show.
Oh, we've come full circle. Here we go. Neurodivergent mind working back to the start.
Because I've been thinking, I mean, I hate first dates. Hate them. I don't want to do it. I don't even want to go. Like, I used to have to, like, I like go out for drinks with guys, and that's like the thing now. They don't never take you out to dinner anymore. So he's like, want to get a drink? Fuck you. Buy me a meal. I'm hungry. I'm just kidding. No, but it's always like drinks, and I felt so nervous. I felt the need to get drunk, and that was like a big kind of issue, because I couldn't relax and I felt awful. I just don't like first dates. I don't like the way they go. They make me uncomfortable. They're not how I do things. So I think for, somebody like me, I always thought like, oh, I'm, whoever I end up with, I'm gonna already be friends with them. I do think that is even a little bit like unreasonable. I think I need to like maybe be a little more open. And I was trying to think like, all right, for somebody like me who's neurodivergent, physically disabled, like what are ways that I can have a first date that feels safe and comfortable and accessible for me. I think for me it's really the like what I don't like the pressure. I don't like feeling like I don't like all the expectations. I want to just get to know somebody without feeling like again that pressure. And I think a first date kind of feels like that a lot, going out to dinner, going out to drinks, doing some I think doing a group activity is fun. I think doing some sort of activity that's like that balances getting to know somebody with also like a distracting sort of, like if you were to do like go out with a group to do like a trivia, at some pub trivia night, or I think I don't know, going to a like a stand-up comedy like open mic night, or I don't know, or going to, it's summertime in New York, they have outdoor movies at Bryant Park, and there's lots of things to do. But I think because I get so nervous as somebody who's neurodivergent, like I don't know. And I also think like maybe I just shouldn't be dating neurotypicals. Fuck that shit. Like I think maybe I'm just like looking in the wrong lake or sea or whatever, where the plenty of fish are. It's like, I think maybe it's the wrong ocean. Yeah, but I don't want to feel like pushed to only date other disabled people, because I don't think that's fair. And I like have a problem with that. Like if you're like, oh, you should only, like, why? No, it makes me feel like I'm not good enough for like non-disabled people. But like honestly, it's like, why would I date a non-disabled like person? Like I feel like I don't want to deal with that of them like not getting it. I feel like that would be like annoying after a while. It is annoying. I have dated guys and they've been non-disabled. So you're going on a dating show. What feels safe for you? Like what about a first date or dating? What are like what about the situations you've tried before made you feel unsafe or like nervous, or what made it uncomfortable?
I mean, I haven't been accepted onto the show yet. I'm still waiting for them to review my application.
Right.
But I think the idea of just dates in the past I've been on, I just felt awkward and like I didn't know what to say. And like small talk was hard for me. So I'm like always wanting to know, like, or ask questions like, if you had superpowers, what would they be? If you were stuck on a desert island, what, like those sort of random questions, just to get to know the person and stuff, and then that flows the conversation for me. Like I'm like, oh well, they said this, I can then ask them about this and all this stuff, and that's how my mind works. Whereas I think people normally, like non neurotypical people, will have more of a structure and know how the flow of the conversation works and stuff, and can have that small talk that I struggle with. And so I think that's why, and then when that happens, I get anxious, and then I'm starting to get overwhelmed, and then I'm having intrusive thoughts that I've said something wrong, or they think I've done something wrong because of what I've said, and then it like leads into a whole like thing, and then I'm trying to act neurotypical while masking my compulsions, and then I just get overwhelmed, and then I'm all hot and sweaty, and then I'm just like, they can see this, they can see that I'm anxious and stuff, and so yeah, and I get wound up. But I think the idea of going on a date where it's structured, we both know that we're going into an unknown situation, but also there's safety measures there, like people around and stuff that can help. I think that makes it feel a bit more safer and a bit more structured. And speaking of dating show, I don't know if you know about the Undateables.
Yeah, isn't it like on YouTube?
Yeah, so it was a TV show in the UK, and I once was on holiday and I had a message from one of the casting agents, and they were like, "We're looking for people." I don't know if that was directed at me, but they were like, "Do you know anyone that would be interested?" And firstly, I'm not going to suggest my other disabled friends go on a dating show that's called The Undateables, but whether it was directed at me and whether I wanted to go on it or were there any other people, I think the idea of calling it The Undateables is very odd, because it's like
It's
those
kind of,
people are not.
I don't like that.
Yeah, like to say people aren't undateable, and I know
Like, I
that for
get
some.
what you're trying to do, but it's not doing that. Like, I get it. Like, I get what you've attempted. It's not, that's not what's happening though.
If anything, it's going to subliminally push the idea that we are undateable.
Yeah, because it's also what they do is they, at a show like that, they're going to take they're looking for a specific disabled person that's going to be, it's almost like it's, I think it's like a freak show. You know what I mean? It's parading it's going to be somebody who maybe, somebody who's like with like SMA, or somebody who has like a limb difference, or they're going to take people that are a certain sort of that grab attention and grab curiosity, and then people watch because not because they're wanting to be educated. It's like it's like a circus show. It's exploitative, and I don't, and then calling it The Undateables, essentially, yeah, that's sort of like the old freak shows, the way it feels kind of like the same energy, but for like the 21st century. And yeah, I don't like it. I think, yeah, but I think I wish there was just, I don't know, there's a show. Do you have Love Is Blind out there? Okay. Do you have your UK version, or is it the US version?
No, we have a UK version. It's with Matt Willis from Busted and his wife.
Okay. But no, I think that's such a good concept, but they were doing it like I would have loved for them to have like a disabled person as a, like, honestly, to me, that sort of having that like separate rooms and not like that feels like the perfect first date for me. If it's going to be with a stranger, it takes so much pressure off, because then I'm not wondering if they're staring at my wheelchair, or, and if I do say something weird, it's like, well, whatever, they'll never see me. You know what I mean? Like, that feels like a very safe way to date. And I would be interested in doing that same kind of thing. And I love, at least in the US version, the first time they go in the pods, they're all dressed up and all dolled up, but by the end of it, they're like in pajamas and they're like wrapped up in a blanket and they're laying down one sleep. She was all wrapped up in sleep, and then she was like passed out, and it was the funniest. And I was like, yeah, that would definitely be a problem for me. I'd probably fall asleep. But yeah, I feel like, and it's so interesting they called it Love Is Blind. It's like, yeah, but like, you up because you didn't include us, named us in your titles. You make money off of disabled people with the title, but you don't even, if you really want to prove that concept, throw a disabled person in there. We'll really find out whether it actually is.
This is where they listen to this podcast episode and they get you on it.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think really it's just, dating just sucks. And I think that there needs to be, I don't know. And I don't like I do feel like it's hard to feel safe. It's hard to feel safe for everybody, but for disabled people, it just feels awful. And the rejection is like double, I feel like, for us, because you're not just it's being like, if I wasn't disabled, if I was just like getting rejected, I'd be like, oh, like, you know, maybe my hair, like, maybe I'm not pretty enough, but I can always dye my hair, but like, I can't change this, you know?
And I think just to bring this to a gentle close, I think we spend so much time as disabled people having to work on ourselves and to show ourselves compassion and self-love because we are disabled, and the world tells us that because we're disabled we're not good enough, and so we do that work. And then when we find it at a point when we feel comfortable to share our experiences with other people and get to know people and date, and then they say, actually, no, I don't like you because of this, or X, Y, and Z, even if it's not directly linked to our disability, I think our body and our mind will tell us that it is. And so that puts us in a position where we feel uncomfortable and awkward, and it just makes dating even more hard.
And I don't know about you, but because the discourse around dating is that we're a burden, or that we're too much, or that our partner has to sacrifice, something to be with us. I feel that has impacted me in a way where I'm like trying to prove that I'm not a burden, like constantly. I found myself feeling anxious to be like, no, like, you don't have to sacrifice it, like, and that really created some unhealthy behaviors for me. And yeah, I would love to just, I think that's what makes it hard too, is like just the way I don't know. I feel like I had something to prove and I don't,
And I think what you say is so true. And I think when you were talking, I was just like, I think it is hard for us. And I think we are deserving of love, deserving of being in relationships, having families and stuff. And I think that self-doubt that comes in when we start thinking about what other people are going to think, how are they going to judge us, what they're going to say when I tell them about my disability. I've had recent thoughts around, like, if I got a first date, would I take my walking stick? And given that today I've fallen over just by walking without it, I'm like, if I fell on the date, that would be awkward. So probably better that I do have the walking stick. But then I'm worried about judging and stuff like that, and the appearance towards the people that they'll see.
Yeah.
And so it's not just one little thing; it's a lot of things. But I think when you find the right person, they will love you for who you are.
Yeah. But even if somebody's not the right person, feeling rejected for your disability, or, it's real easy to be like, oh, well, then fuck them. They're not, if they reject you, then that, they did you a favor. It's like, no, they didn't. It doesn't feel like that. And I mean, I know that intellectually, but it's like, no, like, this is a lot heavier than like, oh, it's their loss. Like, yeah, but like, okay.
It sucks.
And it's more than just being rejected, because again, as like for a non-disabled woman, they could justify it somehow in their brain, like, oh, that guy, like, he doesn't know what beautiful is, or like, he doesn't, because they fit that standard from society. But if you don't in any way, it's like, it's sort of, that rejection reinforces the messages that we're getting constantly. It's like, oh, so in your brain, you're sort of like, it gets reinforced in a way. I think that's what it does, is when you get rejected and you're worried, is it, my disability? And it's sort of that conditioning, that internalized ableism starts to plant its seed, because that's the message we get all the time. So when somebody rejects us for a date or whatever, it's like, it's almost like that rejection is proof of these ableist messages we get all the time. So it messes with your head, like, a lot.
I think there's a lot we could talk about this issue. Like, I've got countless stories of where my friends have said, "Oh, but you're always talking to women on nights out and stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not I don't intentionally try and flirt with them, because I'm worried that, like, of how that's going to be perceived and stuff. And if I do flirt with them, it's not intentional. It's just me being kind, and that's perceived as flirting and stuff. And then all this stuff. And I think there's a lot more we could go into around, like, the idea of like things we've already talked about, like dating, having a family as a disabled person that we've talked about in other episodes. And just to bring this episode to a close, that's a wrap on this episode of Dude, Where's My Ramp? Thanks so much for spending this time with us. If anything we've discussed today has triggered any difficult emotions, memories, or mental health struggles, please know that you're not alone. We've included a list of free resources in the show notes with trusted organisations in the UK and US who are there to listen, help, and guide you. You can find us on social media. Our handles are in the show notes as well. Feel free to send us a DM if you want to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. And also, don't forget to share this episode. The more we spread the word, the louder our collective voice becomes. Tune in every Monday for a new episode for more laughs, more stories, and yeah, probably more rants about ramps and the mental health of disabled life. Until next time, take care of yourself, your ramps, and each other. Remember, we're all in this together.
What team?
Wildcats!